minutes.
Winding up, that's what I do well. So I'm glad to take the opportunity. First of all, Richard Lochhead's speech that he's just made is absolutely disgraceful. I mean, he has hidden, as indeed has Ivan McKee, behind the budget. We can't talk about this as a budget. What's the best that the ministers in combined voice can tell the business community of Scotland? Well, make representations. Well, they have made representations. That's why the Scottish Conservatives have listened and have brought this subject to the Chamber today. We are the party that's listening to business because we are unashamedly the party of business. But what do we hear from the SNP? Tell them about the appeals process. Really? That is the best that the Scottish ministers can come up with in the face of a debate on the subject of NDR revaluation. People often say, you know, that the problem with the Scottish Parliament is there's too much business illiteracy. And you would be forgiven for agreeing with that, frankly, on the basis of some of the things that have been said in this debate. The problem is that too many of us colleagues have never ran a business. We do not know what it's like to get up in the morning and have the responsibility not only to run a business, but to employ people and keep them in employment.
Daniel Johnson, briefly.
I'm very grateful to the member for giving way. I wonder if he might agree with me that it was somewhat odd for the Minister to reply that this always comes up when the revaluation takes place. Does that not suggest there's maybe something wrong with the revaluation process in a fundamental way?
Absolutely right. Because this is a government, let's use the... What are the slogans of the SNP government in power for the last 19, 20 years? We'll take no lessons. That's what they say. That's what they often say from that front bench. We'll take no lessons. They learn nothing from repeated disasters, from putting the Scottish business community through the ringer periodically. They learn nothing. And it's because, frankly, and I do expect better from Ivan McKee, because I think he is someone that understands something about business. And frankly, I can't... Well, you can dismiss that. Maybe he doesn't know anything about business. I stand corrected. Maybe he knows nothing about business. Certainly on the basis of his non-speech in this debate, you'd be forgiven for thinking he knows nothing about business. But we do need to do something about our collective business literacy. Because until you have ran a business, until you have hired, until, sadly, you have had to make people redundant in order to meet a cost base, until you've done the hard yards of what makes this economy tick, or you understand something about it, then when you talk about some of these things, frankly, it's at the level of theory. And it's at that level of theory that we are doing damage to the confidence of the Scottish business community. Because, as has been said repeatedly, Fergus Ewing. Yes, I give way to Fergus.
Briefly, Fergus Ewing.
Does Mr Kerr agree with me that the Scottish Government do have statutory powers to intervene and take action to order the assessor what to do? They've been conferred upon them, and that they should use them rather than pretend that they cannot do anything.
Well, absolutely right. Absolutely right. We've rehearsed the arguments really well, I think, on the side of those of us who want to see the government actually take some positive action. And indeed, my colleague Murdo Fraser set out, as does our motion, specific actions that the Scottish Government could commit to, because they are general in tone, they are not specific. And there is no compromise of any kind of secrecy around the budget, not until at least on Tuesday morning when we buy our copy of the Daily Record, when no doubt we will read most of the budget speech already leaked to the Daily Record, because that would also be consistent with the pattern of this government. They take no lessons, but they love to give Paul Hutchin whatever it is that Paul Hutchin asks them for, so that John Swinney can continue with his weekly column in the Daily Record. No, the reality is, and colleagues have made this absolutely clear, that what we have heard from the government in response to some very carefully argued points from those of us who are in favour of the motion that Murdo Fraser has put down before the Chamber today, is that the SNP ministers and the SNP members who spoke in this debate have carefully, as ever, deflected or simply ignored the issue. The reality is that businesses across Scotland are facing a genuine cost of business emergency. And this rates revaluation is just another layer of their concern. And I will, in the spirit of trying to build a coalition around Murdo Fraser's motion, I will resist from saying too much about Labour spokesmen talking about how they have some kind of sympathy for business, when they did more damage to the business communities of this country in a single stroke in Rachel Reeves' first budget than any Chancellor for as long as I could remember. And added to that, you have the blind ignorance.
Let's hear Mr. Kerr.
The blind ignorance of the SNP ministers in relation to this matter. I think I'm sadly, very sadly, running out of time, and I have so much more to say. These debates need to be much longer just for me to wind up the debates. But I do want to say this. If we think we can go on abusing Scotland's businesses, particularly the SMEs, if we can carry on thinking of them as some kind of fatted calf that come every budget that will be slaughtered in order to justify some extraction of additional revenues for the public purse, then we're making a huge mistake. Because what you're in danger of doing if you do that, Presiding Officer, is you're in danger of killing the goose that lays the golden egg. Do not assume that those businesses will always be there to open of a morning. Do not assume they'll always be there to employ people. Don't make those assumptions. This is a precarious thing, our economy. It's a living thing. You cannot treat it the way that this government treats it. A strong business base underpins employment, underpins, as Ross McCall said, community, and underpins the public finances. A tax system that accelerates decline of the business base instead of supporting recovery it's not just bad economics. It is a fundamental failure of government.